nice is often seen as a virtue, something to be proud of. From a young age, women are taught to be polite, accommodating, and agreeable. They are told to put others before themselves, to smile even when they don't feel like it, and to avoid conflict at all costs. Society has conditioned women to believe that being liked is more important than being respected, that blending in is better than standing out, and that keeping the peace is worth more than speaking their truth. But what happens when being nice turns into self-betrayal? What happens when being nice means putting yourself last in every situation? The problem with being nice is that it often translates to being passive. When you prioritize being liked over being heard, you silence yourself. You stay quiet in meetings when you have brilliant ideas to share. You avoid negotiating for the raise you deserve because you don't want to seem pushy. You let others take credit for your hard work because calling it out feels selfish. And in relationships, you tolerate treatment that doesn't align with your worth because you don't want to seem difficult. Being nice keeps you in a cycle of settling, and settling is the fastest way to a life of regret. Nice girls are often overlooked, taken for granted, and dismissed. Why? Because the world doesn't take nice people seriously. It takes valuable people seriously. It takes confident people seriously. It takes people who know their worth and demand it seriously. A woman who is too afraid to assert herself is a woman who will always be at the mercy of other people's decisions. And let me tell you something. If you don't set the standard for how people treat you, they will set it for you, and you probably won't like the result. There is a massive difference between being kind and being nice. Kindness is a strength, but niceness can be a weakness. Kindness means you treat people with respect, but you also demand respect in return. Kindness means you can be compassionate, but you don't allow people to take advantage of you. Being nice, on the other hand, often means sacrificing your needs, biting your tongue, and letting people walk all over you to avoid confrontation. And if you live your life trying to avoid confrontation, you will never win the battles necessary for your success. Look around at the most successful, respected, and powerful women in the world. Do you think they got to where they are by being agreeable all the time? By keeping quiet when they should have spoken up? By letting their work go unnoticed because they didn't want to make anyone uncomfortable? Absolutely not. They learned early on that their value wasn't in how many people liked them, but in how many people respected them. And if you want to create a life of power, purpose, and prosperity, you have to be willing to trade approval for authority. The more you focus on pleasing people, the more you lose yourself. Every time you say yes when you really mean no, you chip away at your own self-respect. Every time you let someone overstep your boundaries without correction, you teach them that your needs don't matter. And every time you hold back instead of standing up for yourself, you reinforce the idea that your voice isn't worth hearing. Being nice is a habit that, if unchecked, will leave you feeling empty, undervalued, and invisible. You might think that being nice makes you a good person, and in many ways it does, but being nice at the expense of yourself doesn't serve anyone, not you, not your family, not your business, and not your future. Playing small to make others comfortable isn't noble, it's destructive. You were given a voice for a reason. You were given dreams for a reason. You were given a mind that is capable of greatness, and yet you are playing a role that was designed to keep you in the background instead of stepping fully into your destiny. This world is not going to hand you what you want just because you're nice. It's going to hand you what you demand, what you work for, and what you are bold enough to claim. If you keep waiting for someone to recognize your worth, you're going to be waiting forever. The moment you stop being the nice girl and start being the woman who commands respect, everything changes. The world is not designed to hand out rewards to those who wait quietly on the sidelines, hoping to be noticed. It does not open doors for those who refuse to knock, and it does not elevate those who constantly defer their power to others. The reality is that the world does not cater to weakness, it responds to strength. Strength is what gets you in the room, strength is what earns you respect, and strength is what allows you to take control of your life rather than being controlled by circumstances. Those who are too afraid to assert themselves, too hesitant to claim what is theirs, will always find themselves settling for less than they deserve. Strength is not just about physical power. It is about the way you carry yourself, the way you speak, the way you make decisions, and the way you refuse to let obstacles define you. Strength is about standing firm in what you believe, even when others disagree. It is about having the courage to demand what you are worth, even when it feels uncomfortable. It is about not backing down simply because someone else is intimidated by your presence. Weakness, on the other hand, manifests in hesitation, in self-doubt, in the unwillingness to push forward when things get tough. Weakness is not necessarily a lack of ability, but a lack of willingness to stand up and fight for what you truly want. People respect those who are unwavering in their confidence. They are drawn to leaders who know what they want and pursue it relentlessly. Whether in business, relationships, or any other area of life, strength is what sets people apart. When you walk into a room with confidence, people notice. When you speak with certainty, people listen. When you move with purpose, people follow. But when you are timid, unsure, and constantly second-guessing yourself, you become invisible. The world has no reward for those who refuse to show up with boldness. The reason some people rise to the top while others remain stuck in the same place for years is not necessarily because they are more talented, more intelligent, or more deserving. It is because they refuse to be passive participants in their own lives. They are willing to take risks, to step outside of their comfort zones, to go after opportunities that others are too afraid to claim. They do not sit around waiting for permission or validation. They understand that if they do not take control of their destiny, someone else will. And when you let others dictate your life, you will always be subject to their limitations instead of breaking through your own. Weakness invites mistreatment. When you do not stand up for yourself, people assume they can take advantage of you. When you do not set boundaries, people will continue to push past them. When you do not demand respect, people will assume you do not deserve it. This is why strength is not optional, it is necessary. If you want people to see you as valuable, if you want people to respect your voice, you must first speak as if your voice matters. If you want people to treat you like a person of influence, you must first carry yourself like one. The way you present yourself to the world determines how the world responds to you. Strength does not mean you never experience fear. It does not mean you never have doubts or insecurities. It simply means you refuse to let those things stop you. Every successful person has had moments of uncertainty, but the difference is that they acted anyway. They understood that waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect conditions, or the perfect level of confidence was a trap. Strength is built in action. The more you push yourself to take bold steps, the more you realize that fear is just an illusion meant to keep you in place. Those who rely on weakness to get by, hoping that being overly agreeable, constantly self-sacrificing, or staying in the background will somehow lead to success, will eventually realize that strategy does not work. The world does not operate on pity, it operates on power. People invest in strength. They follow strength. They are inspired by strength. When you step into your power, opportunities begin to find you. People begin to take you seriously. Doors that once seemed impossible to open suddenly become accessible. Not because you waited for them to be opened, but because you demanded that they open. There is a reason why history remembers those who stood with strength, those who refused to bow to limitations, who fought for what they believed in, who took up space and refused to apologize for it. The world does not forget those who carry themselves with authority, who make their presence known, and who refuse to settle for anything less than they deserve. Strength is what builds legacies, creates movements, and changes lives. And the sooner you embrace it, the sooner you will see just how much power you truly have. Saying yes when you really want to say no is one of the fastest ways to lose control over your own life. Every time you agree to something that doesn't align with your values, your priorities, or your well-being, you are giving away a piece of your power. You are telling yourself and everyone around you that your needs come second, that your voice doesn't matter as much as keeping the peace, and that it is more important to please others than to honor yourself. The more you make this a habit, the more you reinforce the idea that your own desires, comfort, and happiness are less significant than the expectations placed upon you. When you say yes out of obligation, guilt, or fear of disappointing others, you are setting yourself up for frustration and resentment. You agree to take on extra work when you are already overwhelmed. You commit to social events you don't want to attend just to avoid upsetting someone. You do favors for people who never reciprocate simply because you don't want to be seen as selfish. Each of these small moments may not seem like a big deal at first, but over time, they add up. Suddenly, you find yourself exhausted, stretched thin, and frustrated, not because others are taking advantage of you, but because you are allowing it to happen by not standing firm in your boundaries. People quickly learn how to treat you based on what you tolerate. If you are always available, always agreeable, and always prioritizing others over yourself, you will attract people who expect that from you. They will assume you have no problem overextending yourself, no issue with being inconvenienced, and no real limits to how much they can ask of you. And the truth is, as long as you keep saying yes when you mean no, you are training them to believe that their needs matter more than yours. It is not enough to just hope that people will respect your time and energy. You have to demand it by enforcing clear boundaries. Saying no does not make you a bad person. It does not make you selfish, unkind, or ungrateful. It makes you someone who values themselves enough to protect their time, energy, and peace of mind. The people who truly respect and care for you will not be offended when you set a boundary. They will not make you feel guilty for prioritizing yourself. It is only those who benefited from your lack of boundaries who will push back when you start saying no. And when that happens, you have to remind yourself that their disappointment is not your responsibility. There is a significant difference between helping out of genuine desire and helping out of guilt or pressure. When you say yes because you truly want to, you show up fully with a good attitude and a willing heart. But when you say yes out of obligation, you show up feeling drained, bitter, and resentful. And that resentment doesn't just stay inside, you carry it into your relationships, your work, and your daily life. You start to feel unappreciated, undervalued, and taken for granted. But the truth is, you created that situation by not being honest about your own limits. Many people fear that saying no will make them seem rude, difficult, or unkind. But the reality is that saying no actually earns you more respect in the long run. When you consistently stand firm in your boundaries, people start to see you as someone who values their time and doesn't allow themselves to be walked over. They may not like it at first, especially if they were used to you always accommodating their needs, but they will learn to respect it. And those who can't respect your boundaries were never really for you in the first place. Saying no is not just about rejecting things you don't want to do. It's about making space for the things that truly matter. Every time you say yes to something that drains you, you are saying no to something that could fulfill you. You are saying no to your own rest, your own goals, your own passions. You are saying no to the opportunity to pour into yourself instead of constantly pouring into everyone else. You cannot build the life you want if you are constantly prioritizing everyone else's wants over your own. It may feel uncomfortable at first, especially if you have spent years being a people pleaser, but discomfort is part of growth. The more you practice saying no, the easier it becomes. The more you prioritize your own well-being, the more you realize that your worth is not determined by how much you do for others. The more you stand firm in your decisions, the more you will attract people who respect your time, honor your boundaries, and see you as a person of value. From the moment you took your first breath, you were designed with purpose, power, and potential. There is nothing accidental about you. You were not put on this earth to simply exist, to take up space, or to blend into the background. You were created to be a force, an unstoppable, undeniable presence that shifts atmospheres, influences lives, and creates impact. But somewhere along the way, you were told to be smaller. You were told to quiet your voice, dim your light, and not take up too much space. You were conditioned to believe that being agreeable was more important than being powerful, that being liked was more important than being respected, and that making others comfortable was more important than standing in your truth. The world has a way of breaking people down before they even realize how much strength they truly have. It convinces you that you are too much, too loud, too ambitious, too bold. And because you don't want to be rejected, you shrink yourself. You adjust who you are to fit into spaces that were never meant for you in the first place. You trade your authenticity for acceptance, and in doing so, you lose sight of the force you were created to be. You were never meant to conform to the expectations of others. You were never meant to live a life of hesitation, constantly seeking permission to be who you are. The power inside you was never meant to be hidden. Every great leader, every history maker, every person who has ever changed the world had one thing in common. They refused to be anything less than what they were created to be. They refused to be silenced. They refused to be ignored. They refused to apologize for their strength. And because of that, their presence left a mark that could not be erased. The difference between those who live an extraordinary life and those who settle for mediocrity is not luck, talent, or opportunity. It is the decision to fully embrace who they were meant to be. There is a fire inside of you that is waiting to be unleashed, a vision, a purpose, a calling that was placed in you for a reason. But that fire cannot burn if you keep covering it with fear, doubt, and the need for approval. You cannot be a force in this world if you are constantly trying to blend in. You cannot make an impact if you are afraid of standing out. You cannot step into your true power if you are still holding onto the belief that you have to earn permission to be great. Your greatness is already inside of you. It's just waiting for you to claim it. The world needs more people who are willing to step up, not shrink back. It needs more voices that are willing to speak, not stay silent. It needs more people who are bold enough to walk in their purpose without apologizing for it. Playing small does not serve you. Hiding your gifts does not make you humble. It makes you ineffective. And when you are ineffective, you are not living the life you are meant to live. You are not serving the people you were meant to serve. You are not fulfilling the purpose that was uniquely assigned to you. Strength is not something you have to go searching for. It is something you already have. The only thing that has been stopping you from using it is the belief that you are not enough, that you are not ready, that you don't have what it takes. But the truth is, you have always had what it takes. You have always been more powerful than you realize. You have always been capable of doing things that seemed impossible. But you have to be willing to step into that power, to own it, to walk in it without hesitation. You were not given dreams just to fantasize about them. You were not given a voice just to keep it quiet. You were not given gifts just to hide them from the world. Everything you need to be the force you were created to be is already inside you. But potential means nothing if you are too afraid to use it. Confidence means nothing if you refuse to act on it. Purpose means nothing if you let fear keep you from pursuing it. The people who accomplish great things in life are not the ones who never feel fear. They are the ones who feel fear and move forward anyway. You have spent enough time waiting, doubting, hesitating. You have spent enough time trying to fit into places that were never meant for you. You have spent enough time living below your potential. There is a reason you feel restless. There is a reason you feel like you are meant for more, because you are. You were never meant to stay in the background. You were created to be a force. And the moment you decide to embrace that, everything in your life will begin to change. Confidence is not something you wait to feel. It is something you decide to embody. Too many people sit on the sidelines of their own lives, waiting for the day they finally feel ready to step up, speak out, and take their place. But confidence does not come from waiting. It does not come from hoping. It comes from action. The moment you stop waiting for external validation and start owning your presence, your power, and your worth, everything begins to shift. You were never meant to shrink yourself to make others comfortable. You were never meant to play small so that you don't intimidate those around you. You were meant to stand tall, to take up space, to command attention, not by demanding it, but by fully embracing who you are. When you shrink yourself, when you hesitate to speak, when you silence your opinions because you fear judgment, you are robbing the world of the power that exists within you. Confidence is not arrogance, it is ownership. It is owning the fact that you belong in every room you step into. It is knowing that your voice matters just as much as anyone else's. It is walking into a space and understanding that you do not need permission to be there. The people who make the greatest impact are not necessarily the most talented, the most intelligent, or the most experienced. They are simply the ones who refuse to be invisible. They are the ones who refuse to let insecurity dictate their choices. There will always be people who try to make you feel small. There will always be those who project their own fears, insecurities, and limitations onto you. They will tell you that you are too much, that you need to tone it down, that you should not be so bold, so outspoken, so unapologetic. But their discomfort is not your responsibility. The only reason people try to make you feel small is because they feel threatened by what you could become if you fully embraced your power. And that is exactly why you must stop apologizing for your confidence. Stop diluting yourself for the sake of acceptance. Stop worrying about whether or not people will approve of you taking up space. You do not need approval to own your worth. Taking up space is not just about physical presence. It is about the way you show up in every area of your life. It is about the way you speak up in meetings instead of sitting quietly waiting for someone to acknowledge you. It is about the way you walk into a room with your head held high instead of looking down and hoping no one notices you. It is about the way you advocate for yourself instead of allowing others to make decisions on your behalf. The more you own your confidence, the more the world will begin to respond to you differently. People take notice of those who move with certainty. Opportunities come to those who do not hesitate to claim them. Respect is given to those who first respect themselves. You were not given your voice to keep it silent. You were not given your ideas to keep them hidden. You were not given your talents to let them go unused. Every time you doubt yourself, you are rejecting the very things that were meant to elevate you. Every time you hesitate to take up space, you are delaying the opportunities that were meant for you. It is about understanding that discomfort is temporary, but regret lasts forever. If you spend your life worrying about whether you are being too much, you will never realize how much you are actually capable of. The world does not reward hesitation. It does not open doors for those who stand in the background waiting to be noticed. It rewards those who step forward, those who believe in themselves enough to claim what they desire. The people who succeed are not the ones who never had doubts. They are the ones who had doubts and moved forward anyway. Confidence is built in the moments when you push yourself beyond what feels comfortable. It grows every time you refuse to shrink, every time you choose to own your worth instead of questioning it. And the more you practice stepping into your power, the more natural it becomes. Taking up space is not just about personal success. It is about showing others what is possible. When you walk in confidence, you give others permission to do the same. You become an example of what it looks like to own your presence unapologetically. You inspire those around you to stop playing small, to stop settling, to stop believing that they have to wait for permission to be great. Your confidence is not just for you. It is a signal to the world that they too can step into their power. But that can only happen if you first decide to stop playing small. The world is filled with people who never reach their full potential because they were too afraid to be seen, too afraid to take up space, too afraid to own their confidence. That does not have to be your story. You have everything you need to be powerful, to be influential, to make an impact. But first you must stop hesitating, stop seeking validation, stop believing that confidence is something that only belongs to certain people. Confidence belongs to those who choose it. And the moment you choose it for yourself, you will realize that you were always meant to stand tall, to walk boldly, and to take up every bit of space that was meant for you. For far too long, people have been told to tone it down, to quiet their voices, to shrink their presence so they don't make others uncomfortable. But being too much is not a flaw. It is a sign that you are stepping into your power. It means you are no longer willing to fit into the small, limited box that others have placed around you. It means you have stopped asking for permission to take up space, to use your voice, to stand firm in who you are. The world has conditioned people, especially women, to believe that they must be agreeable, soft-spoken, and unthreatening to be accepted. But real power does not come from acceptance. It comes from ownership. It comes from the moment you decide that you will no longer play small just to make others feel secure. The discomfort others feel when you stand fully in your power has nothing to do with you and everything to do with them. People who have spent their lives conforming, hiding, and playing it safe will always be intimidated by those who refuse to do the same. When you walk into a room with confidence, when you speak with conviction, when you refuse to settle for less than what you deserve, you become a reflection of what they wish they could be. And instead of facing their own limitations, they will try to bring you down to their level. They will tell you that you are too much, too bold, too outspoken, too ambitious, too confident. But what they are really saying is, you are reminding me of the parts of myself I have been too afraid to embrace. You cannot afford to dim your light just because it makes others uncomfortable. Your power is not something to be apologized for. The people who truly belong in your life, the ones who respect and support you, will never ask you to be less than you are. They will never tell you to quiet down, to be more palatable, to take up less space. They will celebrate your strength, not resent it. And the ones who cannot handle it, they were never meant to have access to you in the first place. You do not need to fit in with people who expect you to make yourself smaller. You do not need to be liked by those who fear your confidence. You were never meant to blend into the background. You were meant to stand out. Stepping into your power means embracing every part of yourself, even the parts that others have tried to suppress. It means knowing that your voice is valuable, that your presence is impactful, and that your dreams are worth pursuing. It means refusing to apologize for having high standards, for wanting more, for expecting respect. It means walking away from anyone who tries to make you feel guilty for demanding what you deserve. When you fully own your power, you stop seeking validation from people who do not understand your worth. You stop waiting for approval, permission, or acceptance. You stop questioning whether you are too much and start realizing that you are exactly as you were meant to be. The world has never been changed by those who played it safe. It has never been transformed by those who stayed silent, who conformed, who kept their ideas and ambitions to themselves. Every great leader, every innovator, every person who has ever made an impact was once told they were too much, too radical, too opinionated, too confident, and yet they did not let those words stop them. They did not let the fear of judgment hold them back. They stepped fully into their power, and in doing so, they changed everything. The same power exists within you. The only question is whether you will embrace it or suppress it for the sake of making others comfortable. When you start taking up space, when you start speaking your truth, when you stop watering yourself down to be more digestible, you will start to see the world respond to you differently. You will attract people who admire your strength instead of resenting it. You will step into opportunities that once seemed out of reach. You will carry yourself with a level of certainty that forces people to respect you. But you have to be willing to let go of the need to be liked. You have to be willing to be misunderstood, to be criticized, to be labeled as too much, because the only alternative is to suppress your power, and that is a price far too high to pay. Being too much is not the problem. The real problem is that too many people have been conditioned to believe that being less is the solution. The real problem is that people have been taught to equate humility with invisibility, to believe that confidence is arrogance, to think that taking up space is a sign of selfishness instead of self-respect. But the truth is, the world does not benefit from you playing small. It does not benefit from you being silent. It does not benefit from you hiding your gifts. When you embrace your power, when you stand fully in your truth, when you refuse to apologize for your presence, you give others permission to do the same. There will always be those who do not understand you, who try to make you feel guilty for your strength, who try to convince you that you should tone it down to be more acceptable. But you were not put on this earth to be acceptable. You were put here to be powerful. And the more you own that power, the more you will realize that being too much was never the problem. It was the key to becoming everything you were meant to be